Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Bender. I am the president of the Minneapolis City Council. And on behalf of the City Council and Mayor Frey, I want to welcome you all to our meeting today and express our appreciation for all of you taking your time to come to today's important presentation of the mayor's proposed budget. I will call this adjourned meeting of the City Council for August 15th, 2018 to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Gordon.
Here.
Cano.
Here.
Reich.
Here.
Fletcher.
Here.
Jenkins.
Here.
Schrader.
Aye.
Warsame is absent. Cunningham.
Here.
Ellison.
Here.
Goodman.
Present.
Johnson.
Here.
Palmisano.
Present.
President Bender.
Here.
There are 12 members present.
And we have a quorum for today's meeting, and in addition to welcoming members of our community and important stakeholders, I want to acknowledge the elected officials who've joined us today. We are joined by Representative Fu Lee, Park Board Chair Brad Bourne, and Superintendent Mary Merrill. Park School Board members Don Samuels, who of course is a former member of this body, Kim Ellison, as well as Superintendent Ed Graff. Former Mayor R.T. Rybak is here, and former council member and Vice President of this body, Robert Lilligren, has joined us. So thank you so much to all of you for coming. And I would also like to note that Councilmember Warsame has joined us today. And with that, we are ready, and I'll turn it over to Mayor Frey. We need to approve our agenda. So I'll recognize the Vice President for a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in approval, please say aye.
Aye.
That carries, and the agenda is adopted. So then we will come to our new business. We have only one item on the agenda today, and that is receiving today's proposed budget from Mayor Frey for the year of 2019. So I'll welcome Mayor Frey and recognize the mayor for his budget delivery. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, colleagues, for having me here today, council members, park board commissioners, school board directors, county commissioners, and the community. Thank you. In this budget, you will see clear progress and clear purpose in our decisions. I want to begin by acknowledging the hard work that all of you leaders from across our departments, our finance team, and my staff did to make our first budget proposal for 2019 possible. If our department heads and my staff could please stand and be recognized. Thank you. Today, I have the honor of presenting my proposed 2019 budget, and in doing so, we begin a transition from planning to execution. I also want to thank the City Council members for their respective input. We've approached the budget process differently this year. We've brought council members into early meetings with department heads and staff. Your input was very helpful in the development of this budget, and in the end of the day, it has been crucial. Now, there is a lot to unpack. I want to recognize up front that some items I'm very excited about have fallen victim to time constraints. I went out on a limb and guessed you didn't want to hear a 2-hour speech from me. And so I will be more than happy to meet with you all to further discuss any item. As you know, my door is always open. This proposal was put together with one overriding goal in mind: laying a strong foundation for a stronger city. As our city's population continues to grow at a rate not seen since the early 20th century, Minneapolis is confronting an unprecedented affordable housing crisis. While neighborhoods across Minneapolis continue to feel the benefits of a growing economy, too many people in our city are not included in that growth. Upgrades and updates to aspects of essential city infrastructure have gone neglected for decades. A commitment to good government demands we address those needs, not just with an eye for the 2019 budget, but also with a vision for our long-term future. And where we can increase access and transparency in our city government, we should. Minneapolis government should be more nimble, more responsive to what people need, and we are working to make sure that it is. Our strong foundation rests on 3 core pillars. First, data-driven investments. And we can increase access to transparency in our city government, we should. Minneapolis government should be more nimble, more responsive to what people need, and we are working to make sure that it is. The first is data-driven investments in affordable housing and in programs proven to help people in our city. Second, community-led and community-backed initiatives, forging partnerships aimed at everything from sparking economic growth through inclusion to improving police-community relations. And third, a commitment to good governance and an effective, open, transparent method of government. With that, I'll start with my first priority, expanding access to affordable housing. The cards behind me were delivered by Make Homes Happen, a coalition of housing advocates from around the Twin Cities. Each represents a personal story from someone in Minneapolis making their case for real investments in housing. Aiden Walkett is a graduate student at the U. She wants to live in Minneapolis, but due to the high cost of housing, she's still renting in St. Paul and saving as much of her stipend as she can. She wants early career professionals to be able to live in our city, which in her words is the center of economic activity in our state. I couldn't agree more, Aiden. Paulina Montes de Oca is a first-generation American. She knows that housing is a foundation for generational wealth building. She wants a fair shot at making a better future for her family, and so do we. The Munson family recognizes that for people with disabilities, access to secure, stable housing is everything. They know this to be true because their niece, who has Down syndrome, has been able to maintain her housing independence thanks to inclusive, accessible housing. They're right. There are thousands of stories like these going untold in Minneapolis. After being elected mayor, I convened a group of housing experts and held a number of public meetings to develop a housing agenda that would change the lives of people like Aiden, Paulina, and the Munson family. From those conversations, we generated a set of recommendations that I made public in May. Since then, our office, working hand in hand with our extraordinary CPED staff, have been focused on implementing those recommendations. In 2018 alone, our city has already received 16 applications for support from our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, totaling $23 million. Now, that's a record high for our city. So the good news is that people want to build affordable housing here in Minneapolis. The bad news is that this year, we did not have the resources to support many of those requests. We're going to change that. Driving home the point even further are market realities. Outside capital is available now, but it likely won't be for long. The increase in cost of construction coupled with a hike in interest rates will likely drive down return on investment. That means outside capital is likely to dry up, with fewer businesses and nonprofits vying to build affordable housing in our city. Now is the time to take advantage of a market primed for investment. It is our job to help guide that investment towards a people-centered housing approach. The old cliche is don't put off for tomorrow what you can do today. The reality is that we can't put off affordable housing investments until tomorrow because tomorrow is too damn late. And one more cliche, just for good measure. We got to put our money where our mouth is. Now is the time. In our budget, we will be investing a record $40 million in affordable housing. To be clear, that's just the city's share, $40 million. That's more than triple any previous city investment in affordable housing, and indeed it is one of the highest per capita investments for any municipality in the entire nation. To be exceedingly transparent, let's go line by line to detail where this funding goes. Affordable Housing Trust Fund, $21.6 million. Tenant Hotline, $125,000. Naturally Occurring Affordable Housing Preservation, $3.4 million. 4D Expansion, $250,000. Minneapolis Homes, $5 million. Housing Stabilization, $1.5 million. Affordable Housing Missing Middle, $500,000. Home Ownership Rehab, $1 million. Tenant Legal Services, $175,000. Eviction Representation Pilot, $150,000. Home Ownership Opportunity Minneapolis, $696,000. Home Ownership Education, $325,000. Stable Homes, Stable Schools, $3.3 million. Higher Density Corridor Housing, $463,000. Emergency Shelter Capital and Rapid Rehousing, $767,000. Street Outreach, $300,000. Vacant Housing Recycling Program, $1.3 million. Single Family Construction Services, $3.3 million. Home ownership works, $500,000. Administrative and contractual services, $2.1 million. In addition to the great work that the city was already doing, we are adding a one-time $29.4 million infusion. None of those figures include the tens of millions of dollars that we'll receive from the federal and state government and other sources, which we have chosen to allocate to deeper and longer-term affordability. What this means is that in 2019, we are allocating over $50 million to affordable housing. With that level of support, we can do better for our city by targeting more deeply affordable housing at 30% of area median income level, something that Councilmember Lisa Goodman has long advocated for. I believe that housing is a right. This funding will help ensure that more people throughout our city are guaranteed that right. The foreclosure crisis and the 2011 tornado on the north side resulted in the city owning a large number of properties, of which were concentrated in north and south central Minneapolis. We are seeing trends of displacement in those same neighborhoods where distressed ownership housing is being purchased and converted to rental. And the rates for those rental units are increasing faster than incomes. Here are two primary ways we plan to mitigate those trends. The first is by dramatically increasing home ownership opportunities in city-owned properties. I am proposing a $5 million investment in the Minneapolis Home Programs, which will prioritize inclusive and equitable development by reducing racial disparity rates in home ownership. Owning real property is the best way to increase intergenerational wealth, especially for first-generation home buyers. So let's help more people reach that milestone. The second is a pilot initiative geared towards funding developments of 2 to 9 unit housing along transit corridors, sometimes called the affordable missing middle. An investment of $500,000 will help these projects complement other neighborhood stabilization initiatives, reduce vacancy, and support our current residents. Council President Lisa Bender has done extensive work on the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, much of which is dedicated to bolstering multi-unit housing in scale with single-family homes. This allocation should help support the goals in the comp plan and increase affordability where it is needed. The city is now a majority renter population, and about 50,000 of Minneapolis renters earn less than 60% of area median income. When confronted with the sometimes sudden rent hikes, people face a critical decision: attempt to continue making payments on housing they can't afford, or be forced out of a neighborhood that they have made wonderful to begin with. While government cannot reverse this trend on its own, we certainly can do our part to retain naturally occurring affordable housing. To that end, I'm allocating $3.4 million to our Naturally Occurring Housing Preservation Fund, NOAA. This preservation funding will allow us to help our experienced nonprofit partners acquire affordable properties and protect low-income renters for the long term. Housing stability is especially critical for young people and families. The top indicator of success in school is stability at home. That's just a fact. Still, 8.5% of our school-aged population is experiencing homelessness or teetering on the verge of it. Working with Minneapolis Public Schools, Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, and Hennepin County, we've built a team with the goal of curbing homelessness and housing instability for our kids. Here's how the Stable Homes, Stable Schools initiative does that. We will directly provide $3.3 million on an annual basis in aid so that students and families experiencing homelessness or housing instability have rapid housing support. And we want to do it in a way that allows students to stay in their neighborhood school. Private partners have a role to play too. If you are a private property owner in the city, I am calling on you to collaborate with us and set aside at least one unit in your building to house a student and their family. Together, we can do right by our students and our families. It's not just students who need us to stand up for them. Everybody deserves stability in housing. Eviction is a threat to stability. And without a keen understanding of the law or a legal advocate in your corner, prevailing against a well-lawyered landlord in an eviction case can be almost impossible. We should level the playing field for our renters by providing legal representation. And so, with $150,000 for a new eviction representation pilot, we'll be able to provide that. To be sure, housing access and affordability are statewide issues. In our state, 1 in every 4 households devote more than 30% of their income to housing. That's a burden borne by renters and homeowners alike. This isn't just a Minneapolis problem, but this is a problem where Minneapolis is uniquely positioned to lead, and we will. The data is clear. We simply must act. Data is also revealing what's working and what's not in our approach to public safety and economic development initiatives. And what's working is often centered on community-backed and community-led initiatives. Chief Arredondo is doing extraordinary things for our city. Under his leadership, we've launched and expanded a number of initiatives that are generating results. Why? Because community is bought into this vision. And he's even forging more partnerships even within the city. Our group violence intervention, GVI, led by our health department, is a great example which supports an effective response to gun violence. Based on a person's likelihood of being involved in group gun violence, they're brought into GVI to receive a message: stop shooting and start a new life. Law enforcement, community members who have been directly impacted by group violence, and social service providers all work together to reinforce that message. And guess what? It's working on the north side. A GVI participant who I've met with already is turning his life around. Following an initial GVI meeting, a young man sat down next to me while we were eating dinner, and he told me his story. He acknowledged his prior involvement in group violence, time spent in prison, and a host of difficult and compounding issues on street life. But he also knew exactly where he wanted to be. He wanted to exit the gang lifestyle and get his real estate license. And he was going to do everything possible to make that goal a reality. Just days ago, I talked with this young man again, and after staying up for multiple nights studying his tail off, he passed the first phase of his real estate exams. Minneapolis, his name is Jamal Rolentz, and he's here today. Please give him a huge round of applause, and please stand, Jamal. Please stand. Now, this program is working. Chief Arredondo and I have spoken with people at Little Earth. They want that same opportunity to lead and curb shootings in their community. I'm investing an additional $270,000 to keep GVI strong in the 4th precinct and $100,000 to expand it to the 3rd precinct. This brings our current investment in GVI to $660,000. GVI is rooted in a public health-based approach, as are several other key public safety items in the budget. That's because evidence is revealing that public health-based, culturally sensitive, and community-backed initiatives, they're effective. Earlier this year, I announced the formation of a multi-jurisdictional opioid task force. Again, the efforts are propelled by experts, advocates, and community partners. Our team is working to develop a coordinated plan to reduce opioid abuse, dependence, and overdoses in Minneapolis. Beyond our work to equip every officer and firefighter with life-saving anti-overdose drug naloxone, I'm proposing $50,000 to support our task force's ongoing work. The opioid epidemic is a public health crisis, and our public safety personnel can and should be part of the solution. As a city, we can also do our part in improving and consolidating our emerging public health-based safety responses. I'm also proposing $25,000 towards creating an Office of Violence Prevention and Intervention. The creation of this new office would serve to make sure the right hand is talking to the left, that the departments doing this work are coordinating with one another, and it would serve as a formal acknowledgement of our shared belief that violence is a public health epidemic. I want to thank Councilman Cunningham for continuing to bring more awareness around this important issue and helping to lead. Thank you. As mayor of Minneapolis, it is my duty to ensure the safety and health of all residents and to make sure that everyone feels pride in our city, that everyone belongs. A municipal form of identification would bring us all together under that banner. My team and I have been engaging in discussion with a variety of advocates, staff, and community leaders to come up with a viable policy to create that ID. That's why we are preserving an upfront investment of $200,000 in funding for a municipal ID. The city ID card will grant our residents benefits, opportunities, and hopefully some peace of mind. Too many people right now are unable to obtain a primary form of identification. Youth, immigrants, seniors who no longer drive, transgender people, and those who are experiencing homelessness. Council member Alondra Cano has championed this initiative, and we are moving forward thoughtfully, working with a large interdepartmental team to create a plan. We have a responsibility to first draft an ordinance and then to build a city ID program that protects people's private data and balances implementation costs. We're not there yet, but we are working to ensure we have the public and private partnerships, community input, and core benefits Minneapolis needs for a city ID program. It's important to ensure that all people in Minneapolis can go about their lives with a sense of security. It's also important that every one of our residents is counted in the 2020 census. In fact, it's essential. Our undercounting of our residents brings an underinvestment in our city. The president is weakening the 2020 census efforts with less money, fewer staff, and fewer resources than previously provided. So, as has been increasingly the case, the buck stops with cities. Specifically, $350,000 will stop with us and be included in our budget because the census in no small part defines who we are. Councilmember Abdi Warsami has long recognized the importance of counting our entire city and will undoubtedly be at the forefront of our collaborative efforts to ensure everyone in Minneapolis is counted. We are forming a complete count committee, inviting constituents, faith, arts, and business leaders to shape our 2020 census. Making sure that everyone's voice is heard, that everyone is counted, those are Minneapolis values. Our values can and should be embedded into everything we do. That includes all departments. Public safety and policing in Minneapolis should be centered on compassion. And the need to uphold and enforce our laws should always be balanced with our values. We are allocating $25,000 for a fix-it, not ticket initiative. All of you have heard, many of you have lived this story before. A police officer pulls someone over for a legitimately broken taillight and hands them a ticket. That's been the expectation. Chances are the reason the taillight was broken is the person couldn't afford to fix it in the first place. If they can't afford to fix the taillight, they can't afford to pay the ticket. And when they don't pay the ticket, the fee goes up. Paying it becomes impossible, all the while that light stays out, creating a less safe road for vehicles and pedestrians alike. Instead of letting people get trapped in a cycle of unpayable tickets and fees, let's skip the ticket in the first place and offer a voucher to fix the broken light. An added benefit, it's a way for officers to build relationships, not damage them. Rather than getting dinged with a ticket, you get a voucher for a free repair. Safe communities make economically healthy communities possible. And when we can help drive more inclusive economic growth by partnering with people, businesses, and neighborhoods we all want to benefit, namely Black, American Indian, and immigrant communities, now is the time to put our stated values into action. We must ensure that communities of color are not being used as scapegoats and data points, but are supported as owners, leaders, and partners in prosperity. Let's start with Village Trust Financial Cooperative, the only Black-owned cooperative and community development financial institution in the state of Minnesota. They're open for business, they're lending, they're working with community to build economic security and interdependence in significant ways. Presently, more than 30% of Black households in Minneapolis are unbanked or underbanked, and many depend on predatory lending services to meet their basic financial needs. The Black community continues to be financially underserved and excluded, even as the number of new businesses owned by Black people continues to outpace many other groups. Malia Connolly and her team already have over $5 million in organizational and individual pledge deposits coming from just over 1,600 pledges. Now, they have another one. This, by the way, is a personal deposit from our own, Sarah and I's account. We'll talk about the dollar figure later tonight. And with this budget, we are providing another $500,000 for Village Trust. Will Village Trust's success help make for a more equitable city? Councilmember Jeremiah Ellison will tell you, yes, it will. You can take that to the bank, or rather, you can take it to the credit union. Mm-hmm. While access to capital and credit is often where these partnerships begin, it shouldn't be where they end. Local governments should not be known for putting up roadblocks to opening a business. We should be providing roadmaps for success. Flipping this paradigm on its head won't be easy, but new investments in our Business Technical Assistance Program, BTAP, will help us get there. Whether it's helping upstart businesses pull financial statements together, file a tax return, or securing financing, BTAP allows more people to access the wealth of institutional business knowledge we have in the city. We can connect the upstart to the established company in their sector. Just like R.T. Ryback helped me navigate my transition to mayor, entrepreneurs should have access to that same mentoring. And we aren't stopping with serving just businesses. We have CTAP for co-ops, DTAP for developers, ETAP for business energy savings, and ACETAP for artists, because every great city must support small business development and cultural corridors. Now, before I tap out, that's like your fifth dad joke of the day, we are allocating $597,000 in funding for these programs. We also must plan for our workforce of the future, recognizing that as of today, we have a workforce shortage. With over 100,000 job vacancies in the Twin Cities region, we have to build on our human capital we have here at home. We know that innovation and manufacturing are critical pathways to employment and ownership. That is why we have doubled down on IT and manufacturing. Employer partnerships and initiatives like MSP Tech Hire and programming through the Cedar Riverside Opportunity Center and 800 West Broadway are driving economic growth while helping close the skills gap. A diverse talent pool is critical to our economic competitiveness. This work ensures that the workforce of tomorrow has the training necessary today. Let's support it. We will be investing $100,000 in new spending for MSP Tech Hire, $100,000 for the Opportunity Center, and $75,000 for 800 West Broadway. We should also be partners when it comes to expanding access to culture and human resiliency. Earlier this year, Council Vice President Andrea Jenkins brought forward a meaningful proposal, an African American Museum and Center for Racial Equity. The museum and center will be a place of affirmation and serve as a training ground to help mental health providers. It is a visualization of culture and racial healing that says very clearly, yes, you matter. She has already done substantial work coordinating with the owners of a site within the Cultural Corridor or 38th Street at 4th Avenue South, and has begun the visioning process. I'm setting aside $25,000 to begin site planning for the African American Museum and Center for Racial Equity. Thank you, Council Vice President. Community is a source of expertise in advising the city on how to invest in furtherance of ambitious goals. Economic inclusion is not a single project, but a system-wide transformation of how we do business. Combating climate change the defining challenge of our time is going to require ambition. We are lucky to have a team of experts, engaged residents, and elected leaders like Council Members Cam Gordon, Council Member Steve Fletcher, and Council Member Jeremy Schrader, who are committed to sustainability. I've seen their excellent work firsthand as a member of the Clean Energy Partnership. I am proposing over $1 million in expanded and enhanced energy programs. How we allocate this money will be driven by recommendations from our resident-led Energy Vision Advisory Committee. From incentivizing energy efficiency upgrades to assisting green zones and expanding successful initiatives like the Green Business Cost Share Program, this funding can take us to the next level in combating climate change. We should also add a dedicated expert within the city to lead responses to state-level energy policy. Minneapolis residents see the impact of energy policy not only as an existential threat, but they also feel it in their pocketbooks. Our response to the climate crisis must be cutting edge and forward-looking. In addition to be cutting edge, we must also remain attentive when it comes to improving core city services. Public safety is one of those core city services. Fundamentally, we as a city should be about a new type of policing, a community-oriented type of policing. That's precisely why I'm proposing that we invest in our mental health co-responder program, proposing that we put our sworn police officers on the street, and making sure our officers have full wellness training to be their best versions of self 100% of the time. First, the mental health co-responder program provides compassionate crisis intervention to individuals experiencing mental illness. As fiercely advocated by Councilmember Lene Palmisano, my proposal invests $280,000 to permanently continue the program in the 3rd and 5th precincts and expand it to the 1st. Second, with over $1 million in new funding, we can add capacity to our department in an innovative way by civilianizing 8 non-policing positions presently held by sworn officers. Converting these positions not only frees up sworn officers to build better relationships, it also results in more efficient and cost-effective work done by individuals specifically trained and educated in their fields, like crime lab forensics, body-worn camera technicians, and a new LGBTQIA liaison. So, this proposal is good for safety by getting beat officers on the streets. It achieves a new level of expertise for our civilianized position, and it's good for our bottom line. A sworn officer costs about $28,000 more per year than a civilian that's without including the increased cost of training and insurance. So in this case, the best decisions for safety, fiscal responsibility, and good governance, they're all aligned. Finally, being your best version of self requires self-care, especially in a profession like policing. The officers of our Minneapolis Police Department wear the uniforms they do and take the risks they do because they want to make Minneapolis a better place. So we are allocating $150,000 for wellness assistance to our officers so they can process what they encounter in the line of duty and recalibrate between calls. Ensuring officers are in the right state of mind benefits both the officers and the communities they serve and protect. Making sure that our laws are progressive and progressive policies have teeth is also central to getting government right. Prior to our passage of our minimum wage ordinance, 41% of all Black workers and 50% of all Latino workers in Minneapolis earned less than $15 per hour. That's compared with just 17% of white workers. It's great that workers are getting a raise, but everyone needs to know and understand that these workers are entitled to that raise and to sick leave. And they should know that the city has their back when they assert those rights. Now, it's never enough to pass a law, pat yourself on the back, and declare victory. Indeed, the quickest way to erode trust in government is to pass laws that you don't enforce. A recent case at McDonald's, where workers are now being repaid over $20,000 in lost wages, shows what we can achieve when community, workers, businesses, and the city all work together. We need more victories like this one. So I'm proposing we make a real investment in our labor standards and enforcement division. $100,000 in outreach funding and an additional $100,000 for an investigator to make sure that our city is effectively stopping wage theft. I have talked a lot so far about our efforts to support new and innovative programming in the city. But the reality is that for most of our residents, the expectation is that streets are drivable, bikeable, walkable, and safe, that city services are easily accessible, and that our response systems are ready when emergencies arise. In our capital projects, I have prioritized those that deliver on those expectations. The population boom in our urban core requires a fire station responsive to the safety challenges of a population increase. The proposed $5 million investment to renovate and expand Fire Station Number 1 will likely be key to realizing that goal. Now, it's also necessary that the fire department has the capacity to keep both the city and themselves safe. That's why I'm recommending the addition of 5 positions and $110,000 to give the department the flexibility to help meet the needs of the community and to purchase additional protective equipment meeting or exceeding the minimum national standard. For bikers, we will be spending over $1 million on the Protected Bikeways program and another $400,000 for our Safe Routes to Schools program. For walkers, we are investing $600,000 in intersection and crossing improvements, as well as $4.4 million for repair of defective or hazardous sidewalks. And for everyone, including drivers, we are investing over $73 million in street paving all across the city to make sure potholes are quickly identified and repaired. We also must make wise investments for the future. It might cost more today, but it will save us substantial money in years to come. Concrete streets, they cost more, but they're also more durable, they hold up better in harsh winters, and require far less ongoing maintenance than typical asphalt mill and overlay construction. Councilmember Kevin Reich has for years pushed for intelligent, long-term fixes for our basic infrastructure, and we are taking his lead by investing $4.3 million in concrete streets throughout the city. Don't worry, we aren't forgetting those of you who are groundwater and sanitary sewer fanatics. Over 85% of sanitary and storm sewers are over 80 years old. 45% are over 100 years old. They were built to handle much less water than they do currently. We need to modernize them. We have $18.5 million for sanitary sewers and another $14.75 million for the storm sewers. These are the things our residents should expect from us. A city that consistently delivers on infrastructure investments, and with this budget, we will. City government must rise to meet the needs of the people it serves. Even more essential to meeting the needs of the 21st century, an easy to navigate, interactive, engaging, and intuitive website. We can help more people connect with our incredible staff, access our innovative new programming, and walk away from their computer with a better impression of our city than they had before entering the URL. I'll put forward $111,000 to finally complete this project. In addition to our digital infrastructure, our physical workspaces, they should be modern. Work is underway to meet that goal with the construction of the new Public Services Center. The new design should be consistent and customer-facing. With the new service center, we'll meet that need by providing a one-stop shop for 311, a physical desk where you can get things done. Additionally, we have incredibly talented, highly experienced city employees who frankly make less money than they otherwise could in the private sector because they love Minneapolis and they want to do better by it. But we can't expect to retain them if their working conditions are subpar. Like any other business in Minneapolis, we need to invest in our human capital. That means adequate light, collaborative workspaces, and an innovative design that leads not just to efficient work, but also happy employees. We will also be investing $3.9 million to move our crime lab into the service center and into the 21st century. A strong investment in technology and resources will help ensure our police and prosecutors have fast turnaround on evidence. By doing this, victims of sexual assault and crime will receive a higher level of assurance that justice will be done. We need to keep public safety front and center, and there are incremental common sense steps that we can take to make sure we are, even when we're talking about sidewalks. It might be tempting to forget, given the weather, but it is certainly no secret that Minneapolis has harsh winters. Winter conditions pose challenges for people, especially our seniors and those with disabilities, who are often left to struggle through the snow and ice on our city's sidewalks. I'm working in partnership and in collaboration with Council Member Andrew Johnson. Thank you for leading. And we're going to invest in right-of-way inspectors to move us from our current inconsistent and reactive enforcement to proactive enforcement that covers each and every block of our city. And year-round, our number one in the nation park system should be open and accessible to everyone in the city. Parks provide safe spaces for kids to grow, to learn, and to play. That's why in 2019, I'm recommending a levy increase for the Minneapolis Parks and Recreation Board that includes $800,000 to maintain current service levels and $150,000 for a full-service community-backed school campus program. And I can't tell you how I'm excited about it. And we're going to continue to look for additional funding to supplement those efforts in the coming weeks. The park and school board, they're our partners. Where we can support them, we should. And working together should not be the exception to the rule, it should be the standard. I want to thank the park and school board members here with us today. Please stand to be recognized and stretch your legs. Record levels of funding for affordable housing, housing stability for our kids, and ensuring all residents are counted in 2020, these are non-negotiable if we want to keep Minneapolis strong. But we must do these things with the understanding that the work is paid for by the people we represent. And as stewards of their money, we have a responsibility to spend their money wisely. As is always the case, we built this budget under real fiscal pressures. From backfilling in response to cuts to local government aid, to increased pension obligations, to making right on our promise to fully fund our parks and streets, we have a number of obligations that we have to live up to. When we began this budget process, the prevailing thought was that just retaining current service levels would require a 5.65% levy increase. Some savings came from lower than anticipated healthcare costs. Thank you to Councilmember Palmisano for driving this change. Other savings resulted from hard choices. We found that some programs that had been funded in the past did not have the data to justify continued funding. These programs were cut or replaced with new programs or higher levels of funding for programs that did in fact get results. But today, after months of deliberation and tough conversations, we are able to propose a 5.63% levy increase for 29. Yes, you heard correctly, lower than when we originally started. To give you an idea of what this will mean to the average property owner, if your home value did not increase from 2018, this budget will result in a $55 or a 4% decrease in the city's tax bill. If your home value increased by 10%, the annual increase will be $85 or 6.5%. So, that at a high level is my plan for laying a strong foundation for a stronger Minneapolis. The three core pillars of our government will only be as strong as our leadership and only as dependable as our commitment to following through and getting things done. This budget is one of principled and measured investments. It includes commitment to core services like filling potholes, fixing our 100-year-old sewers, and making sure sidewalks are clear of snow. It includes investment in serving our community, like making our business interactions more customer-oriented and helping providing legal services for tenants. These investments in our city today can serve as guarantees for a strong foundation. That foundation rests on community-led and community-backed agreements, a commitment to good governance with an effective, open, and transparent way of governing, and data-driven investments in Minneapolis. That solid foundation also rests on working together to make this the best possible budget for our city. And I look forward to doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the council, I know that we are eager, along with many in the audience and watching at home, to dig into the details of the budget. Of course, the City Council now sort of grabs the baton and digs into the details, and we'll be hearing from our constituents over the next many months. I want to invite everyone to get involved in the budget. It is a statement of our values, and so important for everyone in the city to pay attention and get involved and contact all of us with your ideas and your feedback before we vote on the final adoption of the budget in December. With that, I will recognize Councilmember Palmisano, who is the chair of our Budget Committee, for a motion to refer this to our Budget Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move the mayor's recommended 2019 budget be received and referred to the Budget Committee for its further review and consideration.
Second.
Councilmember Palmisano has been seconded. A motion to refer the mayor's recommended 2019 budget to the Budget Committee. All in approval, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. That carries. Then the mayor's recommended budget has been received and referred to the Budget Committee. And I will recognize Councilmember Palmisano now for an update on the committee schedule for the Budget Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm pleased to share that our Finance Department has launched a new and improved budget website as one measure to provide greater access to our process this year. That website is accessible at minneapolismn.gov/budget. A direct link from the city's homepage will get you there, will help folks access the budget details. It's ready, and at the end of this meeting, these last links will go up. On that new and improved budget site, you'll find the mayor's recommended budget. You'll find an archive of budgets from prior years, tools and resources that explain the city's budget process and timeline, and an online comment opportunity that gives members of the community another opportunity to share with policymakers their priorities and ideas about the budget. How that will be wrapped up and shared with all council members, we're still working out those details. Obviously, the budget is the centerpiece of our policymaking work, so we not only welcome but encourage residents to give us their ideas and input as this process continues. We'll also be adding a calendar showing the scheduled meetings and hearings that the Budget Committee will be conducting in the coming months. For now, I will note that the finance staff will be presenting an overview of the mayor's recommended budget along with high-level details about budget parameters, key issues, and related matters on Monday, August 27th at 1:30 p.m. The second meeting of the Budget Committee is set for 2 weeks later on Wednesday, September 12th at 11 a.m., where we will conclude the summary introduction of the mayor's budget. We anticipate the first of the department budget hearings beginning the following week on Monday, September 17th, starting at 10 a.m. As I mentioned, more details about these meetings and hearings, as well as additional resources and information about the budget, will be added to the site in the next few days and weeks ahead. But for now, I wanted to assure my colleagues and the public that our process will be open and accessible, that I look forward to what I anticipate will be a thoughtful but passionate debate on several important policy proposals and priorities. And I hope we can advance our shared goals for the community. So I look forward to collaborating with all of my colleagues and with the mayor to ensure we have a budget that meets those objectives. Thank you again, Madam President.
Thank you. So with that, we've concluded our business for the City Council meeting today. I will just thank again so much, Mr. Mayor, for all of the work that you and your office did to propose this budget, all of the department heads who dug in and have worked so hard on this, and particularly our finance staff, Mark Ruff and Micah Intermill, who I know did so much to propose this budget for today, which I think is online now or very soon. Are there any other announcements from council members before we adjourn? Seeing none, I'll recognize the Council Vice President for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in approval, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries, and we are adjourned. Thank you again so much, everyone, for coming today.
Can you got there, girl? I said, that's quite a can you got there.